So today we have, let's say, a practically oriented day, and it will be, I think, less intense in comparison to yesterday. But we do hope that after listening to these motivating presentations of our speakers today, you will get the understanding how you can use the tools of social network analysis in your fields. So for this, we will make some examples of the research which are implemented using actually applied statistics and network analysis methods. And the first presenter is Sergey Davydov. It is just written analyst here on the slide, but actually Sergey Gennadievich is the associate professor of the Faculty of Social Sciences and also the leading researcher in another laboratory. I think Sergey, you will introduce yourself, and also the analyst in International Laboratory for Applied Network Research, and also one of the instructors of our MASNA program. And today, Sergey will have two talks, as you could see from the program. So they would be devoted to the implementation of applied statistics and network analysis for studying media. And so in one presentation will be devoted to the analysis of the roles of journalists, and another will be devoted to one cartoon, which is called Smeshariki. So we think that everyone have seen at least one series of this cartoon. So Sergey will tell much more about this, and soon I will give the floor to him. But before this, I would also say that we also have a very nice presentation of our research assistant, Lika Kapustina. She's the graduate of the bachelor's program at the Faculty of Social Sciences and Politology and in Political Sciences, and she will be talking about how to get data using API of Contacte, and then how to make an analysis of this data. So I really advise you to stay with us today, and we think it should be really interesting and enjoying to get this knowledge. So after this, I will just give the floor to Sergey. So please, and have a great time.
Thank you very much, Daria, for the introduction and for your kind words. I have two stories to tell you today. Both stories are based on the practical research project. And both research projects are somehow connected with network analysis. So it is a part of story, but probably not the main character of the story. First presentation is dedicated to journalistic role performance around the globe project. This is an international project and which is conducting for about 10 years, and it is not stopping. So we are continuing working on this topic, and I will tell about the current results. But of course, please take into account that this project is not finished yet, as well as the second project about Smeshariki. But we will speak later about this one. So my presentation will consist of four main parts. First part is theoretical background. I'm intending to tell you about the research tradition we are based on, and the tradition of media systems analysis, which I suppose will be interesting for you. The second part will be about the methodology of journalistic role performance measurement, and I will speak more concretely about the concept of 6 professional roles, journalistic roles that were measured. I will show some results of journalistic role performance measurement in general. And in the last part, we will turn to network analysis, and I will show some results based on the second wave of measurement, which is the most current wave we have now. So, theoretical background. First, I would the origin of the theory of media systems, which we are relying on, is the publication of 1956, the book which is titled Four Theories of the Press. This book was written by 3 American professors, Fred Siebert, Theodore Peterson, and Wilbur Schramm. Their photos are on the screen, and the book, which is published English version and also Russian version as well, which was published in 1998. Also is on the screen. So maybe some of you will be interested in reading this book in any of these languages. It's available. So among these 3 persons, Siebert and Peterson are not so well known. Or I will better say that they are well known because of this book. And Wilbur Schramm is a real star, a star of media and communication research. And he was a real initiator of writing and publishing of this book. I will just say that Wilbur Schramm is treated as a founder of communication and media research in the United States. So his authority is very high. So about this book, this is a collection of essays. This book contains of 4 essays, and each essay is dedicated to one of theories or one of models of press. I would say that press is not only print media here. Well, the mid 1950s is a time when radio was well developed in the United States. Television was also quite well developed, and radio and television news were quite important for the American market. So when we're speaking about press, when colleagues speak about press, of course, they speak about print media, such as the journals, newspapers, but they also speak about electric media as well. So the main focus is on news media, media that publish and produce news information. And speaking about the systems of this content and organizations, companies that are producing this media content, Siebert, Peterson, and Schramm are saying that there are 4 approaches, 4 possible approaches to organize this media system or to speak about it, to build a theory around this practice. There are two main theories, which are authoritarian theory and libertarian theory, and also two additional theories that are maybe the result of development one of those two theories I mentioned first. For example, the theory of social responsibility of press is a result of advancement of libertarian theory. And Soviet communist theory, which also described by the authors, is a result of some development of authoritarian theory. But authors say that it is possible to treat Soviet communist theory as a libertarian, or Soviet communist theory as an authoritarian one, and social responsibility theory as a libertarian, as an advancement of libertarian theory. So, what are the basic features of each theory? So, speaking about the authoritarian theory, we should take into account that authoritarian media systems existed through the whole history of man. That part of history, concretely, that included media communication, technical media communication. This theory is saying that all forms of media should be controlled by the government or state bureaucracy. Media are basically used for increasing the influence of the first person in the country, of the ruler, and raise his authority among the population. This is the main task these media are used. So it means that the government or the ruler, the first person, has many different tools which make possible the control over media. Some of them are of economic nature, for example, taxes or some sanctions. Some forms of juridical control are also used. For example, one of the main instruments that makes authoritarian theory different from the others is censorship. So if we have censorship, we are dealing with authoritarian theory. That's what we should take into account. And also we need to mention that media activities are carried out on the basis of patents and special permissions. That means that not everyone can act as a communicator in the authoritarian system. You should get special permission. You should get special permission to publish a newspaper or journal. You should get special permission to launch TV channel or radio channel, and so on and so on. This is an authoritarian system which is well known, and there are quite many historical forms, as I already said, and current media systems are also can be treated as authoritarian as well. The libertarian theory, the second theory, is based on the philosophy of liberalism, and So speaking about the liberal philosophy, we are turning to the concrete period in the European philosophy. This philosophy was adopted first in England and in the new era, and then in the United States of America. And what's the difference of this libertarian theory compared with authoritarian theory? The main difference is that media become privately owned, and media become players of the free market. They are competing over the free market and serving the audience, the customer, which is paying for information. In this model, in this theory, the state is not involved, or practically not involved in the activities on the media market. I should say that, of course, state cannot be out of the market at all. It should act as one of the interested parts, but the less state is involved, the better, as libertarians are saying. So, what restrictions can these systems have? What are the limits? Of course, there are some limits. For instance, when we are talking about the protection of the reputation of the individual, of the person, when the reputation is harmed, this should be a limit of the freedom of voice. The other example, well-known example of such nature is the restriction of the distribution of obscene materials. For example, nudity. It is not possible to distribute, to sell such a production free. There should be some limits, and libertarians do agree that these limits are necessary, they should exist. But in general, the feature of this theory is media as a commodity on a free market, free from the state pressure from the authorities. The third theory is a theory of social responsibility of the press. The story of appearance of this theory is quite interesting. It is connected with so-called Commission on Freedom of the Press, which was active in the United States of America in 1940s. So that was a story of a group of I will say scientists that were invited by American businessmen and concretely media businessman. His surname was Luce, and he is known for launching several quite well-known American journals, such as, for example, Life, or Sports Illustrated, or Fortune. And the only question that this man had, and this question was addressed to his commission, is whether there is a threat to the voice of speech, freedom of voice, to the freedom of speech, in the United States of America in the middle of the 20th century. So the commission prepared a big report, and the answer was yes, there is a threat. The freedom of speech is under pressure and under threat. And there were several recommendations how to improve the situation, how to secure the freedom, one of the main liberal freedoms. So the solution was found in a special culture, in the development of special culture of journalism. So this theory says that free press without censorship is allowed. It should be kept. However, the content of the press must be subject to public scrutiny. So there should be some public commissions, some public groups, boards, and so on that should influence on media actions and media ethics. So this theory declared, for example, the necessity of pure news. So we are all dealing now with pure news. I mean, news free from some ratings, free from journalistic personal thoughts or views and so on. So news that contain only facts, fact-based news. So that genre is opposed to editorial commentary, which should exist, of course, in this social responsibility media system, but editorial commentary should be separated from news. These are two different genres. It was not so before, but from the middle of the 20th century, this becomes a journalistic standard. And by spread journalistic standard, used not only in social responsibility media systems, but in other media systems theories as well. Also, what was raised by the theory of social responsibility? Sets of rules and charters to protect editorial and journalistic freedom, codes of journalistic ethics. They appeared in the middle of 20th century because of this wave. Advertising and antitrust laws. So this was time of development of media and communication legislation as well. And I suppose that this theory made a great influence on all the media systems around the world. For example, this was a push to professional journalistic education. And if we will look at, for example, the development of Russian journalistic education, we will see that in 1960s, the first faculty of journalism found in Moscow State University, and later many faculties appeared in other universities all about the country. So this was a launch of new standards in journalism, journalistic education, journalistic ethics, legislation, and so on and so on. And the last theory, Soviet communist theory. This essay was written by Wilbur Schramm, and in this part, he describes the realities of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union of 1950s, of course, the country at that time. So some results and some conclusions can look somehow strange if we will speak about Soviet Union of 1970s, for example, or 1980s, but we should take into account that it was written in 50s, the early Khrushchev period. So, of course, Schramm widely related on publications about the Soviet media, and he makes the conclusion that all the media in the Soviet Union were completely subordinate to the state and directly to the Communist Party as an element of state system. So means that only devoted members of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union were allowed to lead the media and to play some role in journalistic world, some important role in journalistic world. Of course, common journalists could not be members of the Communist Party. Criticism of the tasks of the party was prohibited in the Soviet media. So the main conflicts that were covered by this media were conflicts between the Soviet Union and the other world, mainly the Western world, of course. And speaking about the internal situation, about the internal policy, that was a conflict between good and the better. The better was conflicted with something which is good. All media enterprises were publicly owned. This means that they were belonging to state. And the purpose was to maintain the socialist system. And if in social theory of the press, social responsibility, and in this media system, the press is responsible to its own conscience. And in the Soviet theory of the press, it is responsible to the proletariat as a main driver of historical development. The point which belongs to Karl Marx and which was part of the concept. So about 50 years, this book written by Siebert, Peterson, and Schramm was main theoretical source for media systems analysis. But in 2004, the next important book was published. It was written by two professors, American professor Daniel Hallin and Italian Professor Paolo Mancini. This book is titled Comparing Media Systems, Three Models of Media and Politics. And I would like to speak about this theory as well, because this theory is more close to our project, and this book announced empirical turn in media systems research. First of all, I would like to pay your attention on the fact that authors of this book relied on some empirical material, some results of their own empirical study. Qualitative study to be concrete. And this is a big difference between the authors of the four theories of the press, because, as I already mentioned, this book contained of essays, and there was no methodology, research methodology this theories was based on. Hallin and Mancini proposed quite interesting and complex research methodology. And speaking about media systems analysis, so they analyzed two social systems, media systems and political systems of the countries. And the difference between the first book is that Hallin and Mancini analyzed only modern media systems. They did not go to history. They had some historical analysis in terms of dynamics of these systems and some changes in time, but they did not pretend on analyzing all the media systems in all the world. And also they focused on 18 countries which represent North America and some countries of Europe. They do not include into analysis, for example, Russia, Asian countries, China is excluded, all African countries are excluded, and so on and so on. Only 19 countries. So speaking about the media system analysis, there were four main dimensions which they looked at. That were development of media markets, level of development, of course, political parallelism, that means parallels between political parties or organizations or some probably movements or blogs and so on, and founding of media. Are they influencing directly on as founders? Professionalization of journalism, level of journalistic professionalism, its development. And the fourth dimension is level and nature of government intervention in the media system. These are the four dimensions of the analysis. So speaking about the political systems, there were five main vectors authors were looking at. These are political history and patterns of conflict and consensus in political decision-making, type of government consensus, so majoritarian. One type of pluralism, individual versus organized or moderate versus polarized, and also development of rational legal authority. So these were five parameters of political systems, and based on their observation, Hallin and Mancini proposed 3 different models for the Western world, in fact, 3 models of media systems. First model is a Mediterranean or polarized pluralistic model, which is observed in France, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain, countries of the European South. The second model is North Central Europe or democratic corporatist model, which is existing in Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland. And also the third model, North Atlantic or liberal model. And there are 4 countries that are based on this model, which are Great Britain, United States of America, Canada, and Ireland. So some details describing these models. Mediterranean or pluralized pluralist model. In these countries, in the countries of the south of Europe, we see that media are quite closely connected with the political system. And this connection is the result of a long and conflicting process of transition to capitalism and media freedom and the formation of bourgeois democracies. So can we say that Spain or Portugal or Greece are democratic countries and countries of free press? Yes, sure, we can say that. But if we will look at the history of these countries and the history of the 20th century, we will know that this way to democracy was quite difficult, and this was achieved not long ago, which is quite important for understanding of this model. The big level of development of the commercial press and journalistic professionalism is observed here in comparison with 2 other models, which I will speak about a little bit later. All the countries of this model succeeded in formation of democratic political system despite the difficult circumstances of political and economic nature that I already mentioned. And also we see in these countries complicated access to public information, and this is remnants of an authoritarian culture. Also, we can observe here instrumentalization of the media by political elites and also business elites. The pressure from political and commercial sides on press is quite high here. But there is also one positive feature which should be noted, that in media, in Mediterranean media, we can see a wide range of opinions, and media really serve as a battlefield between competing social forces in reaching the social consensus on important decisions of political nature. Next model, North Central Europe or democratic corporatist model, is described by 3 coexistences. And these 3 coexistences are a set of characteristics that distinguish this model from 2 another models. As we can see, the countries of this model are located in Northern and Central Europe. And what are these coexistences? First, for coexistence, development of strong commercial mass media system, and also existence of media which are associated with political and civic groups. So these countries did not leave the parallelism, political parallelism model, but at the same time, the media are quite strong on the advertising market. Also, here we can find coexistence of political parallelism and journalistic professionalism. So journalistic professionalism is this countries are higher, for example, higher than in Mediterranean group. The coexistence of liberal tradition of free press is also liberal tradition of a free press also coexists here with the tradition of strong state interference in the media. And this interference is seen as fair in this case. These countries are basically countries of the Protestant Reformation, and that's why we have a long history of media markets development. They appeared quite early. And these countries they have a system of democratic corporatism as well. So the last of three models is a model of North Atlantic or liberal media model. The main countries here are Britain and United States. Early consolidation of liberal institutions in Britain and its colonies made possible the development of the most strong and independent media systems. So these countries have dominating commercial press and early development of commercial broadcasting as well, radio broadcasting and television broadcasting. Strong development of journalistic professionalism, strong tradition of fact-based publishing, institutional separation of media and political parties and other organized groups of citizens in the end of the 19th century, and also weak state intervention in media compared to the other two models. So if we speak about the most free media systems, we would say that this is North Atlantic or liberal media systems. So that's something like an introduction to the theory we are basing on making our journalistic role performance project. So what is this project about? This project was launched to answer the question which was formulated by German media researcher Wolfgang Donsbach, who asked the question, what is the difference between the way journalists see their role and the way they perform their duty in practice? So this theory is saying that any journalist has a specific professional role. There is a group of professional roles, and this role can be described in different ways. It can be described by a person himself, can be described by other people, other experts that know this person and can say something about his role and features of this role performance. And also this role can be observed while reading or viewing journalistic materials by this person. So journalistic role is seen via this person's actions, and main action of journalist is his publication. So having publications, we can somehow reconstruct this role, and we can speak about this role. So you see here on the slide some authors and some publications, some concepts which are used in these projects, which we are relying at. You see here quite important media theories, such as mentioned Wolfgang Donsbach, or Daniel Hallin and Paolo Mancini, and Dennis McHale, Carla Nordstrand, Mikhail Hanich, and Claudia Milada, who is the leader of the current project we're speaking about. So let me introduce the team I'm working with. So the first lady on this slide is Claudia Milada, and she's a professor from the School of Journalism of Pontificia Universidad Católica de Valparaíso from Chile. She is a leader of this project, which was started in 2012, I think. So the second picture is my picture, and also you see here three researchers which are working on the Russian side of this project: Olga Logunova, Daria Maltseva, and Svetlana Pasti from Tampere University from Finland. She also works in Russian research team. The group includes the project includes many countries, and here is the group which is responsible for Russia. And we will speak mostly about the results for Russia. So the methodological basis of this survey has two parts. First part is analysis of text, which is done with quantitative content analysis methodology. And also the second part of this research is interviews. Quantitative interviews as well with journalists representing the media. The first wave of this project was conducted in 2013-2015. This time, the project included 18 countries, and Russia was among them. There were only print media on the first wave. For example, in Russia, there were 2 newspapers, and in some countries, there were 3 or 4 or 5, not more than 5 newspapers per country. And of course, that was quite small, I would say, comparatively small, because we had 33,000 texts which were coded during content analysis. And during the second wave, which was conducted in 2020-2021, the number of countries increased up to 37, and there were 10 media from Russia representing all types of media: print, media, radio, television, and online media. And this time there were 148,000 publications analyzed generally all over the world. So here you can see 10 outlets that were analyzed for Russia, which formed the Russian sample. We see that there were two newspapers in the first wave, which were Российская газета and Moskovsky Komsomolets. They were also included in the second wave, but we see that there were many other additional outlets which were taken into this survey. Let's turn to the professional roles. What are the professional roles which are we speaking about? First of all, I would say that all the roles which are described in the survey are based on three different dimensions. First dimension is journalistic voice, and this dimension gives one professional role of interventionist. Interventionist is a journalist which is interventing the audience and interventing the content he or she is producing. The interventionist shows his or her opinion in the publication, in the content. And the opposite side of interventionist is a fact-based journalist who do not show his or her opinion, which is based only on facts. The second dimension is relationship with power. So journalists can be opposite to power, and this role is described as watchdog of democracy. We can continue this name in this way. This is a person who is opposite to the power, who founds mistakes of power in favor of the society and the civil society representatives. And the second role here is loyal facilitator. The loyal facilitator is a person who is loyal to the government, who do not find mistakes or probably crimes or some gaps in the government activity or power activity, and who is trying to facilitate and support the state policy in general. And also three more professional roles are differentiated on the basis of their approach to audience. Civil-oriented role is first one. Service journalism is second, and entertaining journalist is the third role here. So as we can see on the right column, here each role has a number of indicators in the content analysis. The number of these indicators varies from 5 to 10. It depends on the role. So numbers are here, you can see them. So Some descriptions of each role. Interventionist is a person which is providing opinions on the facts and issues that he or she is reporting, formulating own proposals regarding the development of solution to issues or events, encouraging the public to behave in a special way regarding different events or issues, using evaluative terms about events or persons in news reporting, and advocate a particular point of view. Watchdog journalists question what powerful individuals or groups say or do, accusing powerful individuals or group of holding back important information, including information on judicial or administrative processes regarding powerful individuals or groups that are close to power, providing information on abuses of power, on wrongdoing based on extensive inquiry and on research, rather than simply relying on secondary sources, quoting sources that question, criticize, or accuse powerful groups or individual of wrongdoing, and civil society. Third role, loyal facilitator. These journalists usually express positive feelings about his or her own country, present official activities of policies, national or regular, it's not important, but also in a positive light. Favorable stress and highlight the leadership or management skills of institutional powers and leaders, stressing the political, social, and economic achievements of his or her country, champion national values and achievements of individuals or group that belong to your own country or locality. Civic journalism means that new voices of the citizen group or organization are included. This person informs people on the economic, social, and political duties and rights of citizens of the country. Presents background information and context for citizens regarding specific political events in the news, mentioning the impact of political decisions beyond the capital and or the main cities, and including different ideological, political, religious, ethnic, and or cultural prospects in the covered news. Next, service journalist. This professional role means indicating how a particular event or action might influence the day-to-day lives of people, giving tips and practical guidance to the public to deal with practical problems, and also to provide advice and directions in daily life situations. And the last but not least role is infotainer. This person features one or more individuals and their personal, intellectual, physical, and or social characteristics, including explicit references to emotions of people involved in an event, including details of the private life of people being covered in the news, and including very concrete details when describing acts of violence, crime, sex, sins, or similar events in the news that this person is covering. Also a couple of words about the content analysis, namely the code book, how it was organized. The code book for content analysis was quite big. It was about 50 pages of Word file. And this code book consisted of 4 main parts. So the news was described, news publication was described via general information about the news item. Then some story characteristics, sources and reporting methods, for example, what types of references were used in the publication. And the fourth group of codes, the main and the most long part, is models of professional role performance. So for each journalistic role, as I already mentioned, there were some parameters which were necessary to be coded. And of course, we need to take into account that each publication, each news item can have some characteristics, some features of different professional roles at the same time. And so this professional role can be crossed and can be performed in the same publication at the same time. So here are the roles, and now let's turn to some results of journalistic role performance measurement. And let me turn to this data. So I would like to start with cluster analysis of the first wave, which was conducted on the basis of 3 dimensions of journalistic roles, which I already mentioned. So this dendrogram shows 4 groups of countries which were clustered with the use of such dimension as journalistic interventionism. And we see here quite unpredicted, I would say, list of groups. So we see in the premiere, we see, for example, Cuba and Spain in one group. And we should take into account that one of these countries are authoritarian country, and the second one is belonging to North European group, or to 2000 European group, sorry, of course, and to Mediterranean model, according to Hallin and Mancini. There is, for example, United States of America, together with some Latin American countries such as Mexico, Brazil, Ecuador, and Argentina. Here we also see Ireland, which also treated as a liberal country in terms of media, together with United States of America and Malaysia and Philippines, for 2 Asian countries. Germany is together in one group with Switzerland, Hungary, and Poland. That can be understood, but also we hear China in this group, which is also unpredicted. And the 4th group is Greece, Hong Kong, Russia, and Chile. Also, this classification is needed to be understood more deeply. So speaking about the attitude with power, with relations with power, here we also see 5 groups. Cuba is a separate country here. Russia is together with Ecuador, Malaysia, Ireland, and the Philippines. 3rd group is Chile, Hong Kong, China and Switzerland. Maybe Switzerland here looks quite predicted. Poland, Spain, and Greece, countries of the Europe, and also Hungary, United States, Germany, Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. And the third dendrogram is for the audience approach, as you see here. The question from Sarah, just curious, is it 2000 on 2010's results? This is the first wave of the research. It's about mid of 2010s, not so far away. So concerning the audience approach, we see 6 groups. Ecuador is separate. Argentina, Malaysia, Russia, and Poland contains the second group. Chile, Germany, and Hungary, third group. Greece and USA, the fourth one. Chile, Switzerland, and Hong Kong is the fifth group. And the biggest group of countries is Ireland, Philippines, Spain, Brazil, Mexico, and Cuba. So as we see, the last cluster has democratic countries and authoritarian countries and countries that somewhere in the middle. So the journalistic roles and journalistic styles are not correlated with the openness of country. What that is the main idea here, the main result. And I would also say that the groups which were proposed, the models which were proposed by Helen and Mancini, are not something stable and something that works in every situation. So in some cases, the groups and the media system can show quite different correlations and quite different combinations as well. So yourself, thank you for the question. I will not stop deeply in this into these 3 slides, but there is an article with an interpretation of these 3 dendrograms, and it is available in English and in Russian. And in the end, I will show the link to it. So there is a hypothesis why this is grouping in this way. So we will you can find more information about that. So let's go for that. So here are the figures for journalist roles practices in Russia. On the first column, you see the wave. 2 first rows are from the first wave in 2014-2015, and the other 10 are from 2020. And what are these figures about? These figures, the role can be evaluated from 0 to 1. If we have 0, that means that the role is not presented. We cannot find this role in this media. And if we have 1, this is the most strong position that is possible, but that is available here. We see that some figures are very low. For example, loyal facilitator is practically not seen in, for example, Moskovsky Komsomolets, or Novaya Gazeta, or Lenta.ru, or Vedomosti Online. There is just 0.2 zeros, and so on. So many news publications are neutral. There are no rules at all. Because fact-based news, as I already mentioned, they do not suppose any role model and any role presence. However, in some outlets, we see that roles are quite strong. For example, the strongest role is interventionist. And the most strong interventionist media in the list of our survey is Novaya Gazeta. As we see, it has 0.45. Practically half, or it means practically half of these its publications had some features of interventionism. And also, what are the other interventionist media? That's after radio, radio news, and also first channel, Первый канал. Television news are quite interventive as well. Who is not interventive? Коммерсант FM, another radio station, is quite low features for it, and also Lenta.ru, online media outlet, 0.07 here. Watchdog model is also seen in outer radio. In Novaya Gazeta, in after radio as well. Loyal facilitator is weekly presented mostly in the first channel, in the Первый канал. Civic-oriented model that is also weak, but outer radio is the most civic-oriented, we will say, and also Первый канал and TV channels. Service journalism, probably Novaya Gazeta, outer radio should be the most strong here, without doubt. And infotainment journalism is also Novaya Gazeta and Lenta.ru and two TV channels, Первый канал and TV. Also, we can see that media outlets are quite different on Russian market in terms of journalist roles and their practices. But when we speak about two outlets that were involved in both waves, I mean Российская газета and Moskovsky Komsomolets, we can see that their profiles are quite close to each other. It means that stylistically, media do not change strongly, so they keep their profile. But of course, this is mostly a hypothesis, because 2 points of measurement are not enough, and we need to have some more cases, maybe the third wave, to discuss that more in detail. News in Russia, most popular topics, as you see on the first place is government and legislatures, which take about 30% of all publications. And this data is based on the first part on the first wave of the survey. So we have here Российская газета and Moskovsky Komsomolets. We can compare them. And we see that their profiles are quite close. One of these newspapers, Российская газета, is a state newspaper, 100% state newspaper founded by the government. And Moskovsky Komsomolets is a private newspaper, and it's a tabloid. But we can see that their topics, their general topical profile is quite close. First, government legislatures, second, other, third place, police and crime. So they are speaking on quite close topics. The differences are in Российская газета, in state newspaper, we have court information, 3.8% in top 7 of topics. And we have accidents and natural disasters in Moskovsky Komsomolets. All the other topics are presented in both lists, as we see here. Geography of news shows that the majority of publications are of national character, 62% in both publications. Only 8.5% of news cover international events, and Moskovsky Komsomolets has a lower percentage of this factor in comparison with Российская газета. What are the sources of information? The majority of sources are human, but as we see here, Российская газета uses document sources more frequently, which is because of its nature. The state newspaper should rely on documents and should inform about documents. What are the main sources? You see here, state political party sources are the main sources here. About 70 or 80% of publications have no sources in all the publications. Then we see expert source, ordinary people source, anonymous source, and so on and so on. Media sources are seen quite rarely in these newspapers because they are mostly relied on their own sources than the sources of another media. So the links between source and topics are saying that state and political party as sources are in 75% of articles that are dedicated to governance and legislatures. 73% of articles are on the topics campaigns, elections, and politics, and 70% in defense and military. Experts' opinions are mostly in the articles dedicated to health and housing and infrastructure. Business and company sources are used only in the specialized topics of economy and business, and personal opinions as a main source amounts to 13 or to 25% of publication. Next, picture is balance of sources in news presentations. We see that about 21% in total of cases, we see absence of sources and of points of view. In 55.7% we see unilateral coverage, and 22.8% presence of different sources and points of view. Also, some results of analysis of the situation in 2020. Of course, we all remember that 2020 is a year of pandemic. and we did not plan to make special research in such specific circumstances, but the fieldwork was planned earlier, and we had to work in this special year of 2020. And when we understood that media systems are working in a special way, this time we included one special parameter. We coded topical feature of the publication. So if the publication was dedicated to COVID-19 topic, there was a special code for it. Is this COVID-19 publication or not? And so you can see here some results of this group of parameters. On this slide, we see dynamics of share of publications on COVID-19 during the year from March to December. There are random dates you see here, which were selected for making a text sample. And we see that in March and April, the percentage of COVID publications was quite high through the whole sample. We see here 73 and then 72% of publications. Then in May, we have more than 50% of publications. And then this figure becomes lower, but rather high, about 27, 31, 29%, and so on. And so about 30%. If we're speaking about Russia, the second graph is for Russia. It is in orange. And you can see that in Russian case, we see the closed dynamics, but general percentage of publications is lower. So we can see that Russia was not so active in informing about COVID topics, or maybe it's better to say that the topics that are not associated with COVID were covered higher in this case. On this graph, you can see concrete figures of percentage of COVID publications through the whole year. And you will see that you can see that this figure varies from different countries, and the average parameter is 39.9 for 37 countries on average. And you can see here that, well, I cannot interpret why, for example, Lebanon has such a big figure, 97.2%. Practically all the publications from this sample were about COVID. I do not know why it is so, but we have this figure in the base. We can see that Ireland was less active with only 9.6% of COVID publications, and 9 from 10 publications in this country were on other topics. So the question is there any interconnection between the number of ill people or between the deaths in the country or percentage of deaths in the country and the state of media system. And I will show two more graphs that are answering this question. So we see here on this graph share of publications which are on axis X. And also we see percentage of cases in 2020 in the following 37 countries as well. And so we can conclude from this graph that there is no any dependence from one parameter to another. So it does not mean that people speak in media more about COVID when the number of cases is growing. We do not see this dependence. And the second graph is also shows share of publications on COVID-19 or also share of deaths from the number of cases in the same countries. And also we also do not see any relation between these two parameters based on these 37 countries. So the state of media system and the intensity of speaking about COVID was not somehow related with the real situation in the hospitals and in the healthcare system and the progress of this disease. So we have 2 minutes left, and the next part is dedicated directly to a network analysis of this data. I think that we can have a break now, and we will turn to the network analysis of this database, and then we will speak about Smushelki after the break. So there is a question. I think you said that the way of the text analysis is quantitative. Does it mean that the texts were read by people and then evaluated by 0 and 1s for interventionists, watchdog, etc. presence? If yes, I wonder how many people need to read the same text in order to assign a major role to it. Yes, this was a manual coding, and these texts were read by people, but they did not code the role. As I mentioned, each role has several parameters to be coded. And for example, there can be from 5 to 10 parameters which are describing the same role. As for type of coding, one person coded one text. We did not have coders to duplicate coding tasks only on the stage of training, because the initial stage was, of course, teaching. And we made the people code in the same way. And also the survey had some tests to see the correlation of different coders, between different coders, if they are coding in the same way. And these results are also of this tests are published in the final report on the final methodological report on the survey. Okay, thank you. So let's continue in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sergey. It was very thoughtful presentation. Yeah, we will continue in 15 minutes. So now I will stop the recording for a moment.
Thank you. So we are finally turning to the results on promised network analysis on the journalistic role performance database. And I think that Daria will help me in some technical comments on the analysis itself. But I will present the results in general. And what I would like to note first is that there were three directions that we have chosen for network analysis. Initially, the methodological group of the project did not plan to do network analysis, and it is the initiative of the Russian team. And we found three directions, as I said, that can be used here. First direction is the analysis of topics, because each news item was coded for topic or topics that are mentioned in this text. There were, let us see how many topics there were. I think that here they are. 24 topics.
Yeah, 24.
Yes, including the point other, variant other. So the possibility of the coder was to use one topic, two topics, or three topics for one news item. If there was one topic noted, of course, there is no way for network analysis. But for us, there were important those cases when we had two or three topics marked for the same publication. What we can see here, I think I will return a little bit earlier. So we see here the most frequently used codes. We see that the most frequent used was code government legislatures. The second is health, which is not a surprise because that was a COVID-19 year, as I already mentioned. And the third was economy. So this was top three of topics that we had. And turning to the network that we have, there are several variants of the network. Here, one of them. We see that government, legislatures, and health are most important nodes. Probably economy is the third one, and this is a strong triangle, which is interconnected and connected with other topics, which are important as well. If we use the other variants when we do not show weak connections. We see here that there are some topics which are connected with this triangle, for example, court, police and crime, protests, campaigns and elections, and so on. And then there are some topics which are standalone, that are not connected with others, for example, such as religion, energy, environment, accidents, housing, and so on. So I would interpret that in the way that the media system and media production in 2020 was in a quite specific situation when everything was focused on health items, and this topic was prioritized by the government. So government in many countries was the main garant and responsible body for people's health and safety in these conditions. So this was a quite effective way of media, of uniting people with the help of media. So also we have the results of block modeling, and block modeling shows that there are, I would say, 4 clusters. I think we can see them here. We can see the most strong cluster, which is government, health, and economy. These are 3 main topics of 2020. So the second cluster, court, police and crime, social issues, campaigns, elections, are somehow interrelated with the first one, and the government and economy. The third cluster is media, culture, sports, lifestyle, entertainment, which are somehow probably interconnected and connected with the first cluster. And the fourth cluster is all the other topics: religion, accidents, environment, housing, protests, transportation, education, and so on, with quite weak interconnections in this group, and weak interconnections with other groups, maybe only with the first one, but government, health, and economy as well. There are some interrelations that can be noted, mostly, of course, with government. Daria, do you want to add something here?
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, yeah, probably I can make some. I can make some comments. If we will go a little bit upper. So, yeah, I just wanted to tell that the original idea. Yeah, probably I can also try to show you some. Wait, no, sorry. Yeah, that's. I wanted to show you actually how the. Do you see my screen now? Huh? Sergey, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to show you how actually the networks were constructed, because I think it can be probably useful for you to for your own research. So I will just open the main file which I got as the input file. And yeah, sorry. As Sergey told you, yeah, we had a lot of observations and manual coding of if the topic is presented in the observation, which means piece of news or not. And so we actually had the data in such a format, which will be opened very soon. Just wait a little bit. Yeah. So we had the okay here. So we had the IDs of observations. I just don't know. It looks a little bit. Okay, let me show you another one. So here we had the ID of observation, and we had these codes, and for each observation there was either 0 or 1 if this code is presented. Here I have the data for another type of network, but I just want to show you the idea. And what we actually see is the metrics. When I was telling about the PIAC formats, network data formats in PIAC, I was saying that one of the forms how you can insert data in for networks is the matrix format. So it would be this one. So you have the columns and rows which are connected with each other. And so basically we just so we can understand this type of network as a two-mode network, and we were talking quite a lot in different presentations about two-mode networks in this summer school. So which means that we have two sets of nodes and they are connected between each other, but they are not connected inside. So we have the set of observations, and then we have categories. And what we actually do is that we simply create a network, which will be a two-mode network, which will be looking somehow like this. At first, we have so we are using PIAC for the analysis, and so we just list all the vertices that we have, and we start with observations, and then we just go to our another set of nodes, which are our codes. Let's go like this. So you see here, so they are just, so this is our second part, second mode. And then we just use this data which we had at the metrics as an input to one Python code, and we just create the list of args out of this metrics. And so then we are fine. We have this two-mode network, and then actually what we do is that we just go to this to the analysis that we have. I mean, having this, just let me open it. So we have two-mode network and two-mode networks, and then we can make some very short analysis. And as we also discussed for two-mode networks, there are some special algorithms developed, but the main approach usually is to create a one-mode network out of these two-mode networks. And so then we create one-mode networks out of this two-mode network just by multiplication. And you see that actually we have quite a lot of nodes. Yeah, you see that we have 148,000 of nodes. And we just use PIAC to multiply these two networks. One network is transposed and one is original, and we just multiply them, and actually we get this one-mode network. And values of this one-mode network would be the amount of times when two topics are met jointly in one observation. And out of this, data, we just made this analysis that Sergey has presented to you. And actually, it was not only for topics, but it was also for sources and roles of journalists. And I think that now Sergey will continue talking about this. And yeah, probably later, if you will have some technical questions, I can also make some comments about them. Yeah.
Okay, I will turn my screen now. Just one moment.
So we used the same workflow for all this. So we got 3 types of networks, so which were the networks of concurrence between topics, sources, and journalist roles. And we actually used the same workflow, which was at first look at the 2-mode network, then create 1-mode network, and also to make some as these networks are very tightly connected, the nodes in these networks are tightly connected, so that's why we used some thresholds to leave only the most the strongest ties. So that's why you see in this pictures that Sergey is showing that there are basically the same pictures, but just this different levels of different thresholds, which where we were intended to find like the best structure to delete all the links which are not really so strong, and to see some structure, because otherwise we would see just a connected component, which is not very surprising and interesting. We were trying to find some inner interesting structure, and we actually think that we did it. And block modeling also helped us to find some groups and to see how these groups are connected with each other. So Sergey, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. And I'm turning to the second analysis that we made. That was an analysis dedicated to sources. So each news publication has some sources which it is relied on. And there can also be many sources, the variety of sources in one publication. Here are the types of sources that were possible in the coding book. There are state or political party source, one code, citizen source, media source, business company source, civil society source, representative of civil society, health source, education source, anonymous source, legal court source, and police and security source. These are the most popular variants of sources, but also from the network that was constructed, you can see some other sources, for example, celebrity source and so on. Religion church source, not so popular, but also it exists here. And so you can see here that state and political party source was the most frequently used, and other main nodes are citizen, business company, civil society source, anonymous source, and health source here. So here it is better seen how they are interrelated. Okay, and let's turn back to block modeling. So we see 4 clusters here. State party source, media and citizen is the first one. Well, I think that we will better look here because it is better shown. Yes, we have citizen, media and political party cluster as the first one, which good interrelations. Business company, civil society, health and education with a good interrelations inside the group and with the first cluster. We have police, security, legal court source and anonymous source as a third cluster, which has weak interrelations inside of it, but good interrelations with the first cluster. And the fourth cluster, which has no interrelations in it, and weak interrelations with other clusters, even with the first one, that are celebrity, sports, religion, and military and defense as well. And that was the second network that was constructed, and the third network that is maybe the most important one is the network that is based on the indicators of professional journalistic roles. So as you remember, we had 6 roles, and here they are shown with their indicators. For example, you see watchdog role is the first one with the most number of indicators. Civic role, loyal facilitator role, service, infotainment, and interventionist as well. And then we turn to the network that was constructed. When we look here, we see that everything is interconnected with everything. The first picture is not visualized good to make some observations, but then you can see these nodes that are colored with the special color for each role, and we see interconnections between some parameters from different roles. For example, we see that parameters of the civil activist role, for example, is connected with entertainer role, with emotions, sensationalism, and so on. And for example, at the same time, this role is connected with social activism as well. So here we can see that roles are not connected internally. The indicators are connected internally in the role, but there are some very important interrelations, and this topic, of course, should be discussed and should be analyzed more deeply to understand the role or the sense of this role as and how they are represented in the media. And here you can see the interrelations between different roles. I think that there we have one more picture, which is even better, this one. Yes. So in the center, the orange node is, in fact, there's a written journalistic point of view, but in fact, this is an interventionist role. And the left point where it's written infrajudicial process, this is watchdog role. So the most strong interrelation is with interventionist and watchdog, which is quite expected, which is understandable. At the same time, we see on the right the red node, which is defense activities. This is, I think, a loyal facilitator role. And on the top, where it is written citizen reactions, this is civic journalism. And we see no interrelation here. And this is also quite understandable because these are quite opposite positions. You are working for the government, and you are trying to facilitate the government activities, or you are working for civil society and you are supporting, as a journalist, some civil actions and movements, maybe parties, and so on and so on. So there is no interrelation here, which is quite interesting. So I would, and we see here some loops which shown that there are some interrelations inside the parameters of one cluster of one row. So I think that that's all that we can say. Oh, no, that's not all. We also have clusterization here. And I think that we have 4 clusters. Now we have 3 clusters. And also here we see that some clusters are there are some interconnections of parameters inside the clusters. For example, here we see there is no color differentiation. This is differentiation for clusters. But we see, for example, here the criticism. Criticism is a mark of watchdog model. We see at the same time here emotions, which is mostly about infotainment journalism. So some interesting interrelations can be found here as well. So
yeah, Bharani, you are right.
Darker the color, more is the correlation, right? Yes, it's right. So we see the most correlation in the first cluster.
Yeah, however, probably I can make a small comment also here.
Thank you.
It's not exactly the correlation. This is the similarity between the nodes, the similarity between the structural positions of the nodes in the network. So Marianne Zugmas was making a great presentation on block modeling just in the first lecture. And so this is actually the way how we can approach, how we can use this approach for real data. Very basic analysis, but so what we do is actually, Sergey, can you please move to the upper and another one, which was before this. So actually, this is just a matrix. So this is the representation of network in a matrix form. So which means that you just visualize your network not in a network form, but in a form of matrix. And here, what we have, these colored labels. So these are for 6 journalist rows. So we just sorted them according to the cluster. I mean, according to the role. We sorted the indicators that we use. We have 67 indicators, and we sorted them according to the roles of the journalist, and there are just 6 of these roles. And we colored the labels according to the roles, and also we splitted the network. We made clusters based on this information. So probably also you remember when we were talking what network is. Network is not only the graph, but also this additional information. And we can use this additional external information also to, to show some structure of network. And we just used this partitions, clusterization according to the roles which were given by our theoretical and methodological model. And we just made the visualization of our network. And already from here, we can see something. So we see that in the group of this orange 5 indicators, there are some indicators which are really tightly connected to each other. But what block modeling also allows us to do, okay, let's move to block modeling actually, and I will also make a comment. But already by this representation, we can already see some patterns in our network. But then if you will go further a little bit, so when we counted this dissimilarity according to Euclidean distance, Sergey, can you move a little bit further? So what we actually see, I mean, to the next matrix. Yeah, so we used this dendrogram to understand which clusters we have. And then we made the picture of the matrix of these 3 clusters. Can you move further, please? Yeah. Yeah. So here we see these 3 clusters, and then the idea was to look how different if so we kind of hypothesized that probably these clusters are composed of different indicators. And then on the next matrix, we actually see that can you move further? Down? And now here, as Sergey told you, we see that in the most connected component, the cluster number 1, we actually see that there are different indicators which form this tightly connected cluster. So which is, I think, now the case that should be returned back to this methodological and theoretical level, like to see how so we have a model according to which we have some indicators, some different indicators, so they should fit each other. But when we see that they appear jointly, so we should actually go back and discuss it and think about it, and also somehow interpret it. But this is something that should be returned back to Sergey and his colleagues who are studying this media system from this theoretical, also from the theoretical point of view. I saw some questions. Just a second. What the darker blue lines in the matrix image, horizontal and vertical? Yeah, so these blue lines are clusters. Yes, so this is the way how to show that there are 3 clusters here. And what block modeling allows us to do is to see, not only to split the network into groups, as some community detection, all community detection algorithms do. So we not only split the network, but we also see how the parts of the network are connected to each other. So we don't only see that there are 3 groups, so what we see by diagonal, right? But we also see that the first group is connected to the second group here, to this pink one, but these blue indicators are not connected to either this second group or this first group. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I also should add that this is the research which is just on the way. And yeah, we also have an idea that we will analyze the data of the first wave in the same way, and we will just compare the results. And we do think that there should be some differences because of pandemic year, so that probably it somehow caused the topics and yeah, the discussions in media. And in general, we will just see how the patterns were changing. And basically, this is quite a basic analysis. So this is something that is not so difficult to do. So you just what you have seen is just the creation of networks out of these two-mode networks, and then we just extracted the groups of nodes connected to each other according to just a regular line cut. So it's not a difficult thing at all. And okay, probably block modeling is a little bit more advanced, but basically it's not a rocket science. So I just mean that you can find similar kind of data probably in your projects, and you can also implement network analysis out of your own research as well. Okay, I'm stepping back.
Nasha, thank you very much for these comments. And I would like also to add one more slide on this project, which contains some references on the project in general. And so here are two books which I can recommend you if you are interested in this topic and in this project. First book is Journalistic Role Performance Concepts, Contexts and Methods, which was published in 2017. And the second book is Beyond Journalistic Norms, which was published in 2020. I can unveil our plans because these two books were basically oriented on the first wave of the research. There are two books that are planned to be written on the second wave. And there are also many different articles in journals. You can find them on the project site, which is here on the screen. And also I'm recommending for the Russian-speaking audience the article which is also here. It is titled «Гибридизация журналистских культур. Сравнительные исследования реализации журналистских ролей». And this is the article which is dedicated to cluster analysis of countries, which I showed you. And there you can find more detailed interpretation. If you are interested in it, please use this URL to access it. So you are welcome. Also, if you have any questions on this topic, this presentation, please ask. And if you do not, I will turn to another slides and another